previously in place had failed them. For the panel, and we'll start with Mrs. Lyons, how are you involving survivors and other athletes in your decision-making process and policy changes moving forward?
We think that the voice of the athletes is critically important in forming any of the changes that we make. I wish that many of the survivors would come and contact us. We actually are prevented due to some of the litigation from reaching out to them directly, but we would welcome their voices. We are setting up, we've just done a 1,000 athlete survey. We've received 1,000 responses on the survey to get our broader athlete population, helping us to understand what their concerns are about safe sport. We have been meeting with our Athlete Advisory Council, and they will be, and other athletes, of course, will be part of our athlete safety panel that's going to go forward and help us make policy changes going forward.
Ms. Perry?
Thank you. This is something that I think about every day. And one of the first things that I did when I became president and CEO was I started flying everywhere and talking to athletes, and some of those are survivors. And their voice is incredibly important to me. And what I have found is that there is just so much love of this sport, but there's a desire to have an impact on the organization and its strategic direction. And one of the things that I created was an athlete task force to have that happen. I think it's a very important first step. Ms. Lyons talked about the advisory committee. That's important. But for me, it is really about getting in front of as many athletes as I can and making sure that their voice is heard and that they feel empowered. And I will tell you that that is something I focus on every day.
Okay, please continue. Thank you.
Congressman, I sent out a letter to our membership encouraging and inviting any survivors to contact us for a chance to meet, and I would be happy to meet with them personally. I've had the opportunity to meet with one survivor thus far. I've had contact with 2 others and plan to have 2 other meetings. Aside from that, as I've said previously, we need to engage and empower our athletes to be part of our solutions going forward, and that'll happen immediately.
Mr. McNally.
So USA Taekwondo is one of, I believe, 3 NGBs participating in the Safe Sport Athlete Climate Survey, which is going to reach out to a select number of athletes and get them involved. We're also working with Fighting Spirit, which is a group that educates on sexual misconduct and bullying, to make sure that those athletes learn about this before they become victims.
Mr. Davis.
We also engage our athletes and have an athlete council that we are engaging with to be able to talk to them about trying to make sure that everything is made transparent to us. In addition to that, we have been in constant contact with past victims, which were part of the reason of how we were able to go and continue with the Mr. Butler case that we were able to do.
Ms. Pafol.
Yes, we actually have 2 athletes on our governing board, and we are also establishing a Safe Sport Champions program where we'll be able to cut across all of the sports to engage survivors as well as those that are passionate about preventing bullying, harassment, hazing, and all forms of physical, emotional, and sexual abuse.
Okay, thank you. Next question. These horrific events occurred for years without repercussions. Unacceptable as far as I'm concerned. Given the sad reality, what changes has your organization made to encourage athletes to come forward with any complaints of abuse they have made, or they may have some complaints? What changes have you made to encourage them to come forward? Let's start from here, Ms. Lyons.
I think first and foremost, we have to make sure that the information on how they can come forward is made better available. So we've made a lot of website and other communications changes so that people are aware of the center, its role, and that it's a clear path to safe reporting. That's item 1. We also need to ensure that the athletes can, reach out to anyone that they feel safe to discuss, and all of us need to make ourselves more visibly available to them. And I think that everyone on this panel believes that those voices need to be heard and is trying to build the mechanisms in place through either councils, working groups, surveys, whatever it takes to get those voices better heard.
How do we ensure that their actions, again, the allegations, the victim's allegations are acted on quickly? Quickly, if you could respond, because I don't have a lot of time.
I think that it's really a cultural change, and that's something that I've embarked on from day one. And the culture has to be one where athletes feel they can speak up, and you accomplish that through a lot of different ways, through your structure, through your policies, through your personnel, but nothing replaces being there in front of the athletes. Nothing replaces being their advocate. And as an organization, that is something that I've dedicated my time, and quite frankly, the reason I took this job, so that they would know their voice not only matters, but it's going to make a difference in our organization going forward, a very impactful difference.
Okay. And it is important, again, I'm sure you know this, that these allegations are acted on quickly so that we can encourage others to come forward. So, yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of time, so I have to yield back. Thank you.
Gentleman yields back. The chair will now recognize the gentlewoman from Michigan, Ms. Dingle, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Harper and Ranking Member DeGette. Thank you for all of you being here today. And like many of my colleagues, if the Olympians represent courage,